to this evening's part of the Black History Month program. Here's the program for those who haven't seen it. I would like to give a warm welcome to our guest this evening, who I'd like to say today we have a conversation with us two very special guests and icons of British reggae music. People who have helped shape the sound and spirit of a movement that began in local sound systems and grew to influence the world. First is Grantley Haynes, producer. Thank you. Producer, entrepreneur, and author who has been a driving force on the British reggae scene. Through his record label GTS Records and My Boys Beats, he's helped launch the careers of artists such as Paco Banton and Tippa Irie himself. Yay. His book, The British Reggae Music Industry, A Windrush Legacy, My Story, which is on sale here at the back this evening. I've just read the book and it is amazing and very important, and I would recommend it to those of you who haven't bought it yet or borrowed it from the library. It captures the history and cultural significance of British reggae and the Windrush Generation. So joining Grantley is Tippa Irie, Brixton origin. Ladies Saxon Studio International Sound System in the early 1980s, and his 1986 hit Hello Darling brought reggae and dancehall to the mainstream audience in this country. He's since worked with artists such as Alexander O'Neill and the Black Eyed Peas. Tippa's autobiography, Stick to My Roots, is also on sale here tonight, so please do buy that. Together, Tippa and Grantley represent both artistry and industry. Which I would say the artistry is nearest to me and the industry is Grantley. Because they are two sides of the same phenomenon. Artistry, chat the lyrics, and the industry build. And we're good tonight because we have icons of both of those aspects with us tonight. After we've heard from Grantley and Tippa, there'll be time for us to for you to join in conversation, and we'll open the floor for the audience to ask questions. So without me taking up any more of your time, please join me in welcoming Tippa Irie and Grantley Haynes. I don't know if you want me to start off by asking any questions, or you want me to leave the floor.
No, you continue.
Okay,
we can continue.
I'm just going to interfere.
You know, he knows me so well, he can speak for me. And I can speak for him. Isn't that a good blend?
That's a good artistry and industry. But I'm going to ask one question just to get the party going, right? I'm aware that some of us are seniors, hence the grey hair. Just as an example, but some of us are also very young. And when I was reading the book, it occurred to me that if you're born in something like 1992, you're already 30 plus year old. If you're born in 1995, you're 35 year old. So when I was reading the book and you were talking, my brother, you were talking about sound system, I thought for some people, they might not understand what a sound system is, or if they've heard the word, they don't actually know what it means to build a sound system. And you're both part of the sound system phenomena that has shaped and been at the center of reggae music. So I would ask you to begin with, please explain to us, what is a sound system?
Well, that goes for either one of us, okay? So
Both.
we can both join together.
And I'm going to leave you with the microphone to continue the story. A big welcome again, please. Thank you. And Tippa.
Well, feel free, Tippa, to join in wherever you want, because...
No, I'll let you lead the ship in regards to, because I guess you had a sound system
Yeah.
before I did.
Yeah.
So I guess you can explain and then I will continue.
Fill in.
Yeah, fill in.
The gaps.
Yeah.
Okay. For me, a sound system starts off with an amplifier because you're not going to get any sound without an amplifier, or invariably speakers. So you have, it starts off with an amplifier and you add a record deck to that amplifier. Yeah? And the speakers. Now, the speakers don't have to be large. They just was large when we started sound systems in Britain, because we took what was a sound system from Jamaica and brought it with us through the Windrush Generation to the UK. So in Yard or in Jamaica, they would be like a wardrobe side speaker, and they had two speakers at the top, and at the bottom they had where you would get the bass reflex, is what we call it when we were building them. You understand what I mean so far? So if you was to stand near a set of speakers, you would feel the vibrations and you would feel the wind, okay? And that's what gave us the vibe or the inspiration to move with the music. So you had a deck, you had an amplifier or amplifiers, which sometimes separated the mid-range from the top section and the bass. So you had a separate amplifier sometimes just to run the bass. And then from there, you would have what we call a pre-amplifier that allowed you to mix the mid-range with the tops.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. I'm glad that you didn't forget that, because you need a preamp to EQ everything. And then obviously you have tops, mid-range. Grantley just mentioned bass and mid, but you've got tweeters, mid-range, and bass.
Yes.
And wires.
Yes,
So
lengthy wires.
You can't get the wires to run.
But there's a technique, because if you had, I don't want to get too technical because, you know, everybody probably doesn't need that right now. But what you could wire the speakers in is in series or in parallel. If you wire them in a particular way, there could be a polarity, what's called a polarity defect, which would have the speakers feed back in the...
Check.
The speakers would reflex backwards and forwards rather than forwards. So that's a little bit about that. But what the brilliance of that sound system did was create the creative input, and that's where people like Tippa Irie came in. Yeah? So he would then chant, Tippa Irie chant Panamanican, that is stuff like that. And then singers like Maxi Priest, yeah, they would sing along over the rhythms that the sound systems would play.
Yeah, so I guess it's like it's like similar to a mobile disco, but not quite. Yeah, it's a bit more, I guess I would call it traditional, more, I think the word would be probably the sound. I'm trying to think of the word that I was looking for, but it's escaped me. But the bass, mid-range, tops, wires, amps, preamps, obviously the vinyl, turntable. That basically is what made up the sound system, and music will play, and yeah, people dance from there.
And if you bring it into today's, has anybody been to a festival? Well, what you have at festivals is you have system, what you have is what would you call it, Tim?
In what sense?
In terms of what happens at festivals, they have a whole PA system, a public address system, which is the power that comes through a public address system can go as high as you want. Sound systems only used to go to a certain length, other than when they started to really get technical and become PA systems. But you still need people like Tippa and singers to actually transform it to become popular music.
You had a question?
How expensive were these?
Oh my dear.
So that time?
Well, anything, just like anything, it's how much you'd want to spend, based on the sound system that we wanted to build and create, would depend on how much you spend. Because there's obviously sounds that were playing in the blues dances, and then there's obviously sounds like Shaka, Quaker City, Scots and Saxons that were playing in big town halls that had to spend a lot more money to be able to facilitate playing in the town hall.
For instance, when I started my sound system, I spent £600, which I borrowed from my mother and my uncle. Now, when I made the amplifiers myself, I also made the speakers myself, and I put the surrounding decks into a compartment myself. So really, it would have been worth about £3,000 at that time. But once I built up, it was worth £15,000. Now that's a small sound system. Samson sound system probably went up to £30,000, £40,000, £50,000 and greater.
Yeah, for me, it's like, like I said, when we was at school, our elders, we had elders, there was a sound called Stereograph, and then me and my friend, Commander B, remember Commander B from KSFM? We used to have a sound called Tippa, and that's kind of like where my name came from, from school. So, and we just used to, get whatever pocket money or whatever we could gather together and buy equipment, or we used to get equipment from other means, let's just say, and put it together and create our little sound system. So we used to play in my dad's, my dad used to have a basement where we had 2 rooms downstairs, and we used to go down there and practice, and then Commander B used to live in Kennington, in the high-rise, one of the high-rise building up in Kennington near the Oval, and we used to go to his little room and set up the sound in the room and practice and play the sound from in the room in his house. So, to answer your question, it just depends on the level of the sound system determining how much money you spend.
Hopefully that answers your question. Next question, please.
Is there any questions? No?
We did have a number of questions written down, and it's on my phone and it's on yours.
Can I ask another question?
Yes.
In reading your book, the sound system is not a big thing about competition, right? Big competition between the different sound systems. In that generation, sound systems used to carry music up and down the country. I know you are based in Birmingham, or you're originally from Birmingham.
Yes.
And sound systems are north, south, east, and west. We have Coxsone, we have, you mentioned Stereograph, we have the Moon Bassa,
Yes.
and many others is a dub plate special? And what role does that play? Did that play in
You want to come
in
in?
your sound system?
Yeah, well, the dub plate is basically if I have a tune, like it's good to have the feeling you're the best. Yes. You know, is that Michael over there? Hello, Michael. I didn't know you were here, my brother. How are you? Nice to see you. Yeah, if your sound, what's your name, darling? What's your name? Yeah.
Fatima.
Fatima. So I would say it's good to have the feeling you're the best. Yes, you know, say Fatima, she are the best. Yes, it's good to have the feeling you're the best. Yes, you know, say Fatima, she are the best. She control the dance on ease and you know what I mean? So basically, that's all a dub plate is. It's there's all the sound systems them from all over. It's a very lucrative business for artists because obviously there's hundreds and thousands of sound systems all over the world, and they want artists like myself to cut dub plates for their sound. So basically, dub plate is a sound system contacting me, asking me to sing one of my songs, mentioning the name of their sound system. And basically, it's just a form of promotion for their sound system. And it's a very lucrative industry. There's, you know, I'm speaking to a guy the other day. I went to Jamaica, I think it was a year ago, and this guy was in a hotel, and he had a little studio, and I said, Bridget, this is a nice hotel. It's a nice little hotel. I think it was an Airbnb. And he said, I don't build a hotel in Tippa. I don't play money to build this hotel. I said, really? He said, yeah. So it can, you can, for artists that you probably are not hearing about or whatever, they're at home making a good living out of just doing dub plates for the thousands of sound systems that's around the world. Yes, dear. 1 second, man.
I don't know nothing about dancehall music. I am interested in finding out something about who you guys are and how you got to where you are today. I don't know nothing. So you guys are talking and I'm not understanding anything because I don't know who you are and what you are about. So could you share with us a little bit of who you are and how you got to where you are, please?
Okay, well, you know how it goes, isn't it? When somebody asks you a question, you have to answer the question. So we're conducting the interview as sound system, dub plates, and now your question is,
Can I just step in there?
You can.
As the producer of dub plates and records, the idea is that when Tippa does a dub plate, usually will do a dub plate, sometimes on any rhythm, but usually sometimes the individual that wants the dub plate wants a special to beat another sound, to overcome another sound. So Tippa has to write a lot more than he would normally write than doing a little special.
Yeah, we call that custom. So,
I'm just going to continue. So what the producer have to do is blend his vocal as though it was a song, and that takes time. So custom.
yeah, it's just, there's different types of dub plates. So there is the one that I just sang for Fatima is, it's just, I'll call that standard dub plate. And then there might be 4 sound systems having a clash. There might be Coxsons, Saxons, Tubbies, and Frontline, for example. And then Tubbies might come to me and say, Tip, we want to kill the other 3 sounds. Not literally, with music, yeah? And then I would have to create something original, humorous, funny, to basically get the better of the other 3 sound systems. And we call that a custom dub plate, yeah?
Super. Very well explained.
Thank you, sir.
I've got to thank you. Even though we've worked together for many, many years, I love working with this this guy. We've travelled, you know, we just come off a Southeast Asian tour together, where we've been together, where we've worked together, where we've lived together, where we've had fun together. And it's since he was 19 and I was 23, okay? So we've been like brothers. I taught this lad how to drive, believe it or not, in a week, okay?
So
He's that clever.
So anyway,
Yes. So where am I
anyway,
from?
the young lady asked the question.
You see, now we're getting in. We're now warmed up now.
So
Hi, Josiah. Hi, Michael.
all right. So the young lady wanted to know about Grantley Haynes. So let's start with Grantley Haynes.
Do you want to?
She wanted. What was the question, my dear?
Who am I?
Who am I?
Okay. My name is Grantley Haynes. I started off as a DJ. Well, let's say I started off as a chef at 17 years old, and then while I was doing that, because my father told me, you've got to do this, you got to have a job. So I did that, and then I moved on, and while I was doing that, I built my sound system because my mother was happy for me to do what I loved. My dad said, if you don't do that, don't come into this house with no teams, right? So I said, okay. So I did it part-time, and it got to a point where my sound system was paying me more than my job. So I quickly moved on, and I had a sound system called GT600. I met Pat O'Banton when he was 19, I think, and from that I saw him, and we were friends in the Birmingham area, and I was into the music, and you'll know these two guys. I met Smiley Culture and Asha Senator, and we became really good friends, tight, because I was working as a chef by that time in London at Bank for British Telecom, and I was assistant head chef. And I used to go out in the nights, and I met Smiley and I met Asha, and both of those gave me an introduction to sound system and MCs. And Smiley would invite me round to his house when I came to London, and Asha Senator would do the same. And one day Smiley said, "Why Grant, me I play the Lyceum, you want to come?" So I said, "Yeah man, I'll come." So I stayed over, went to the Lyceum, and who should I meet when I was at the Lyceum but Pato? And Pato said, I said to Pato, how are you getting on? He said, "Boy, I've been on already." I said, "How did it go?" And Pato said, "Well, it went alright." I said, "What do you mean alright?" He said, "It went alright, man. I'm just going to head back to Birmingham later." I said, "No, man, you forgot on again and do that tune there." And he went, "What tune?" I said, "Hello, Tosh." He said, "That stupid tune. Are you mad?" I said, "No." I said, "Do that tune and you'll remember it for the rest of your life. And if I'm the only one jumping up and down, I'm going to make myself look stupid, right?" So he said, "All right, then I'll do it." He said, "Tell Ronnie Gunn to put on the B-side of every posse get flat." So said, so done. I went over to Ronnie again. He said, "I'll play it now." He put on the tune. Pato came out singing. He went, "Hello, Tosh, come on, Toshi, back. The place just ripped apart. Everybody, 3,000 people, was up on their feet saying, 'Lift it up.' This happened about 7 times. That night, Pato became Pato Banton to London. London then knew about Pato Banton. So moving on from there, on the way home, Pato says to me, "Boy, I'm going to need a manager." I said, "Don't worry, I'll manage you." And he laughed, he said, what are you talking about? And I'll deal with it, man, no problem. So I started managing Pato, and I said, if we're going to manage each other, we're going to do this, we have to do it properly. So I gave Pato a contract for 3 years, I think it was, and we ended up working together for 15. About a month after that, if I'm not mistaken, I was talking to Tippa Irie on the tube. We was heading somewhere, I think it was to Papa Levi's house. And Tippa said, yeah man, when I go on all right man, I like when I go on. And I said, what, are you available? And Tippa said, well, do you want to do the business? And I said, of course man, no problem, deal with that. Tippa looked at me and said, boy, all right, okay. He said, I said, so I looked at Tippa and I said, how much money have you got in your bank? I'm not going to disclose what he said to me. But I said, in 6 months' time, you'll drive whatever car you want. Now this is me putting myself on the line. I said, in 6 months' time, you'll drive whatever car you want, brand new. And I think that tells you a little bit about who I am. We could go on, but my books out there will tell you a little bit more in detail. So I don't want to take up Tippa Irie's time because I know there's going to be much more questions that come from the floor, and I want to give you an opportunity to ask them live and direct. Tippa, over to you, sir.
Yeah, I think you could have elaborated a bit more on
This
in a shorter space of time.
Okay.
But anyway,
You can fill in the gaps.
I'm going to fill in the gaps. He's very modest, Grantley. Yeah. But anyway, if for those who don't know, I'm Tippa Irie. Born 1965, Dulwich Hospital, South London, Brixton. Started my career in East Lake Road, off of Coal Lane, Flaxman. Anybody know Flaxman Sports Centre? Around that area there. I grew up around that area. My dad had the local shubby basically on Friday and Saturday night. So every Friday and Saturday people used to pay £2 to come into my dad's shubby. And one room was I'd say the gambling room where people used to play Ludi, domino, cards, and the preamp, the amplifier, the turntable was in that room, and in the other room was the speaker box, and people used to be in that room dancing. That's where my career started. When I was about, 15, 16, I started to take it seriously, started to listen to Big U, Dillinger, Trinity, Tapazuki, Dennis Apapone, all of the, U-Roy, especially the popular DJs then from Jamaica. And I used to just listen to them, imitate them, wanted to be like them. And then my cousin, my sister Jackie, after everybody said, you know what, you're starting to sound very good. You need to let people hear you. So that's what I did. I went out to all the local sounds like Soloy, Nasty Rockers, all these sounds like that. And then I went on to Mikey Dread sound, which is, Mikey's was the brother of Cecil from King Tubby's. And basically, me and General Slater went on to Mikey's sound. He was chatting on his sound, and then he brought me to his brother Cecil, which is King Tubby's. King Tubby's heard me, asked me to join their sound, started to pay me a couple of pounds to DJ and to lift the boxes and stuff like that. And then my career just started to take off within the community. I became like a little community celebrity. And then I think one day I was at Ferndale Sports Centre in Brixton, and I did a talent competition there, won the talent competition. Musland and Dennis Rowe from Saxon, they were there. They said, we want you to come and join our sound in Lewisham. And at that time I was moving with Daddy Rusty Raymond, and I just said to him, let's go and check them out and see what they're saying. So I did. We went down there, and there was like some really talented people. You know, Danny Colonel was there, Maxi Priest was there, Roger Robin, Rubin, a brother called Stout, a few more really talented people, Peter King, and all of these guys were there. And Smiley and Asher used to come occasionally to the dances as well. And we just me and Rusty went down and said, you know what, we like the vibes here, and plus, they were paying us £10, you know, and Tommy's was only paying us £3. So we said, you know, so the money was bigger as well. So we said, okay, we like it over here. We're getting a bit more money. We could buy our little herb, we have our little drinks and everything. So we were nice. So we started to follow Saxon. We started to go everywhere with the sound. And then the sound just basically, Tippa Irie, Papa Levi, Rusty, Sandy, Colonel, it just blew up basically within the sound system culture. And then when the sound system really took off, record labels started to become interested in what we were doing. So Tippa Irie, Rusty, Sandy, Colonel, we all got signed to Greensleeve Records. And then Maxi got signed to Virgin, and Papa Levi got signed to Island. And then basically, once I signed to Greensleeve, my career just basically took off from there. I started to make tunes like It's Good Time to Be in the Best, Complaint Neighbor, and then Hello Darling was where everything kind of went through the stratosphere. And a lot of that was down to this man here, yeah? He was managing me at the time. He taught me about publishing and things that Grantley's taught me. Is still making me money today, you know what I mean? So he taught me about publishing and stuff like that, made sure that we had our own publishing company and stuff like that. And yeah, it just kind of basically, it went from strength to strength until today, you know, I'm Tippa Irie, traveling the world, bringing my music all over the world. And partly, a lot of that is due to Grantley's insight, knowledge of the industry, because obviously I'm a very talented artist, if I say so myself. But you need that person
to do that. I said it before.
But you need that person because it's the music business. So Grantley is a very articulated person musically, but he's also very articulate in business. So the two go together. So I think that kind of a quick brief of Tippa Irie, does that make sense? Yeah? Cool.
And he's still the same now. I could ask Tippa, this is one thing I always say this when people get really serious about questions, and some of the questions are, how would you describe Tippa Irie in one sentence? And I would say, Tippa will always develop a melody. So give me a melody, Tippa. You can do this on demand, and this is what really made me feel that I could develop a business and a career out of management.
Yeah, but as an artist, you have to give your manager something to manage. Yeah, so it's as much as he's talented and in what he does, as an artist, you have to give your manager something that he can work with to make you into a celebrity or into a star.
And you know, I would say do this. I took a Peter Spence wrote a song called Girl of My Best Friend.
Well, we didn't write it.
No.
You
wrote it.
Thank
He
you.
didn't write it. But I said to Tippa, put something together that talks about Peter taking your woman, and the rest is history. Just look up Girl of My Best Friend and you'll see how creatively he put that together. And I do that with every artist I work with, even my cousin that's sitting at the back. I I'll say to her, this is what I want you to do, and we've written a couple of songs together, and she still doesn't believe how really good she is. But you see, the task of a manager is to inspire the artist with how really good they are, because they sit in a world and they don't know what's coming at them other than when people tell them. So I have to say, this is my vision for you, this is where we can go. If you stay in England, this is in 1983, I said, if we stay in England, you're going to die. We have to go out to the world. So I want you to tour America. I want us to go to America. It's going to be hard, but we've got to do it. Because that's where your pension is. Fortunately, he listened, because some artists don't listen, but he listened, and he said, all right, G, if you're saying this, I'm going to do it. That's talent as well. Hard work is a talent. It's got to be direct.
Yeah, it's very important, you know, that you put it in, because it's a simple, you know, saying, you know, you put it in, you get it out, you know what I mean? And me, as an artist, I've always believed I keep an open mind in whatever I'm doing, you know what I'm saying? And I work with different artists. I work with artists that are very popular, but I also work with artists that might not be popular, you know, and because sometimes working with somebody new can bring out something in you, or bring out something different, or that person might create something that becomes the latest thing or the new thing. So you have to keep an open mind when it comes to music, and I've always been that way when it comes to my music. I like to just keep an open mind, but it's the actual production of the music. I say to artists now, especially, and I wish I did listen to it even a bit more when I was younger, you have to, you know, put money into the music, you know, and put your money into music, because it will last longer. You know, if you invest into what you're doing and try to get the best and put more into it, it's like, you know, I find that's why if you listen to a Bob Marley tune, you know what I mean, a lot of, you can tell the money that Chris Blackwell gave him, he invested it into the music. That's why it still sounds the way it sounds today, you know what I mean, because of the quality. So I think for artists it's very important for you to invest in what you're doing, and because it will stand the test of time.
Yeah, and I'll go further with that. If you're going to hire a manager, make sure that that manager is solvent. Make sure that that manager, when I say solvent, if you don't know what that word means, make sure that that manager has money. Because without money, there's not a lot you can do. That means you have to wait for money to come in. I've got an artist right now that does a Gregory Isaac tribute. His name's Terence Wallen. And if I didn't have money to invest in him, I'm sure he wouldn't be where he is today. So you've got to have money. You've got to have money to produce the songs. You've got to have money to promote the songs. You've got to have money to drive. What did I do this morning? I drove from Birmingham to London. If I haven't got money, there's no way I can do that. So you've got to invest. And this is what I think the Windrush legacy taught me, because my parents came over here to generate income, because if they'd stayed in the West Indies, Barbados mainly, if they'd stayed there, they wouldn't have had what they've got now. If my dad had not said to me, you've got to go to school, I want you to be first or second, I wouldn't have had the kind of determination then to say to my friends, listen, I've got to go home, I've got to do my homework, because if I don't, I'm going to face the strap. You know what I mean? So, and when I'd see my dad or mum coming when I was playing football or something, playing with my friends, I would be the first one to pick up my coat and be running back to the house. This guy has met my father.
You're lucky we never have no time to pick up my coat.
I mean, it's serious. So, when I wrote the book, the reason I started writing my book, and Tippa can tell you, I was thinking about writing a book ages ago. But my son came to me and he said, Dad, what do I tell your grandsons about you if you was to pass away? And first I was taken back, then I'm a realistic individual. Reality is me. And I'll tell you how much reality is me is, because I was writing this book and it was just about to release January this year. January the 24th, I had a heart attack. Okay? And I mean it, I had a heart attack, so I could have died. And there was a lot of upset people, and there was a lot of people who was there for me. Tippa was one of them. He came to Birmingham and he spent a week with me, running me around the place. And this is where I understand value, and we've talked about many things, personal things, you know. I mean, some people say I'm like Tippa's brother, you know, like his guide, and I'll agree to all of those, because there's when his sister passed away, I was the first in my car to drive from Birmingham to London to be by his side. And that's a comfort when you've got people that do that. So I felt that. So this is a bit more about who I am. So you now see a little bit more about who I am, because I want you to get a depth of who we are and what we do.
Did that answer your question, David?
It certainly did, because I was putting both of you in the same basket. No, I know one is a producer, or the business side, and one is the business side. So thank you.
So,
okay.
Shall we talk about the Windrush legacy? Because when I talked about the Windrush legacy, I'm not just talking about when people, our parents, came from the West Indies here. I went back and I tried to put it in context within a chapter, what we left in Africa to come here, because there was no such thing as the West Indies, where people from Africa came to the West Indies. They were never born there. We were born outside of the West Indies, in Africa. And what happened, I tried to put this in context for people that don't know, which my learned friend was coming to. I talked about that there was problems, just like anywhere else in the world. Within Africa, there were different problems. People would fight against different tribes and so on. And they would capture people from those tribes. And they would go on to hold them, but they would never mistreat them in such a way like the slave trade did. That's the difference, is the way that we were treated on that route from Africa to the West Indies. But that's not something that I particularly held on to. What I said is, what do I do with who I am? Because as you see, I've got two books. I've got one on crack cocaine. So that led to me leaving the music business in 1993 and going on to do a degree at Birmingham University, then going on to do another degree, a master's degree in criminology at Leicester University, and then carrying on from there and doing an MBA at Birmingham University again. So I learned that my son, who had asked me to write something for his sons, that he could read them, I'd written about 30,000 words. And Tippa said, you might as well write your book. And a lot of people said you might as well write your book. So the title came from how and where I was and what I had learned and who I'd worked with and the people who I'd interacted with. Almost everybody in British reggae, you know, starting from UB40, Steel Pulse, Aswell, Bashara, you know, and many more artists like Maxi Priest, Tippa Irie, Winston, Janet Kay, Carol Thompson, Deborah Glasgow, and so on and so on. And I put a little bit of a chapter in there about all of them because they're all great artists that could have all been in the British charts, but for one reason or another, there's bits that needed to be done that perhaps wasn't. But nevertheless, that is something that is their legacy, and moreover, it's our legacy. It's something that we can tell our children, and beyond that, what we both realized is that when we went to Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, and Dubai, people were interested in our books. So it is the book that's necessary for all of us to write, not just black people, white people, Asians. We need to come together because the proof in the pudding is how well we can work together. And I put myself at the centre, judge me by my results. I've worked with Tippa, and I'm still working with Tippa. I don't have to be his manager now. I have to be his friend now. And I have to be honest with him, and I have to be loyal. So if there's something that he needs to know, I tell him the truth, whether he likes it or not.
Yeah, for me, obviously my career has been like 45 years in music. And I've managed the music was I'm really grateful to the music because it's taken me to many countries, you know, to name a few, like Australia. I went there and I did a tour there, and I've been to the 52 states of America. Some of it I did with Grantley, a lot of it I did on my own, and then parts of Africa, Asia. Even this year, you know, Grantley was saying we went to Asia, India, and a whole lot of other places. Music, and it's just through the reggae music that's allowed me to see all these places. So 40 years of music, 45 actually, and then obviously the fact that my parents came from Jamaica, came to the UK to work to make a better life for me and my two sisters. I read a chapter about Hello Darling, and because I thought it was important to tell the story of how that song came about, because that song kind of really helped me and my family. And then there's different chapters in my book about jungle music, and it's about Lovers Rock has also played an integral part in my career, because I've worked with people like Lloyd Brown, Janet Kay, Carol Thompson, Peter Honeygirl especially, who's my dear friend that, you know, Maxi obviously I've worked with as well. So Lovers Rock has played a big part in my career. There's a couple of tunes that I've done that were #1 in the reggae charts. Most of them have been with Lovers Rock artists. Obviously, I tell the story of my sister that passed away. My sister was taken from me and my sister in traumatic circumstances, you know, in Taos Hill. It must be about 30 years ago now. So my book you know, really, it also covers, you know, things like the Brixton riot, New Cross fire, you know, Enoch Powell, Margaret Thatcher, you know, me and the ghostwriter Mark, we wanted to, you know, cover all of those things because it obviously, with the Windrush, it was a big part of all, you know, all these things were happening at the time. So we thought it was important to mention all of these things. And I've got people in my book like Ali Campbell from UB40, Maxi Grease is in the book, Jumping Jack Frost is in my book as well, Carol and Janet's in the book as well, and they're telling their story within my book also. So, you know, my son came to me, said, Dad, you need to write a book, you know? So I said, you know what, you're right, I do, I need to tell the story. And it's important that we tell our story ourselves. It's important that it's for us to tell our stories about ourselves, you know, it's important. So that's why I decided to, you know, it was important. There's not enough books from us. There's so much talented people that we need to know about them, know their story, know their history, and I think we need to have more books like this.
So let me say this. So I left the music industry and went to university, and that's where this book came from. Because while I was on tour in America, I went to get my hair cut in Harlem, because we were doing a concert in New York. And when I went to the toilets, I saw a woman on crack cocaine doing a job for $5 with a man. And they said, that's crack, G. When I went back into the barbers. And sometimes I can be a sensitive person. And it still hurts now really, because I felt, if that was my sister, what would I do? If that was my mother, what would I do? And I said, I've got to do something. So after I'd completed my master's in criminology, I set up the Wheeler Street service for crack cocaine users, and that was black crack cocaine users, because at the time there was 3% of the total number of black drug users coming into treatment services. And by the time I left, there was 35% entering services. And this is the story that shows how far, where I started with it, and why I started it, and when I ended it, I was one of the non-executive directors for the treatment service of the country. Gosh, can I remember? I've got so many things going on in my brain. So I was one of the non-executive directors for the National Treatment Agency for Substance Misuse. Gordon Brown accommodated me for the work that I'd done alongside others in London, mainly people. Yeah? We delivered treatment from crack cocaine users and made it central in every area of this country, that black, white, Asian, every individual could access treatment, and that's something that we do and that I'm extremely proud of. So my service was the Wheeler Street Crack Outreach Drug Team that was set up in Birmingham. And that's what this book is all about. This book tells you, you don't have to identify yourself, but if you come in touch with a crack, cocaine, or drug user in general, this book will tell you how to treat them, how to work with them. And if they need extra help, you can go along to any treatment agency if they're using opiates. Because if you're using opiates, a different kind of treatment. It's not just psychosocial. When I say that, this book will tell you what psychosocial interventions are. And that's why I wrote that book. From my perspective, if I had a family user, how they should treat them. And that's whether you're a grandmother, whether you're a son, and your mother's using crack, this book will tell you how to do that.
Thank you. Thank you, Grantley. The book that Grantley was referring to is one here, Crack Cocaine Treatment and Me. So that's the most recent one that Grantley was referring to. The book that is behind the British Reggae Music Industry, that's also by Grantley, just so that we've got two different books, but they're both very important.
Before you go on, do you want to hear something I don't like about Tippa Irie? Because you've heard quite a lot of quote unquote what I like about it. Why have I done that?
He supports Man United. Of course.
And he rips me constantly. I didn't hear anything from him this weekend.
No, you done me a favour this weekend. You done me a favour because you beat Liverpool, so you did good. I appreciate it.
He did not even phone me to say, gosh.
How long have we got, my brother? Do we have time?
He wants to move on now.
Tell them about my book.
Yes.
We're kind of coming towards the end of the evening now, because as good as it is and as long as it is, I'm kind of conscious of time too. Tippa Irie, Stick to My Roots, autobiography. That's the other book that we're promoting tonight. I'm gonna try and round it up. Well, I'm not gonna round it up myself. I'm gonna invite two questions, quick fire questions. So let me see your hands, please. And don't talk before you get the mic. One over there.
And it can be anything you want.
Okay, and one over there. Okay, just two men. What do you ever voice?
Can we have a female as well?
Alright, I'm losing track of all of it.
Yeah.
While you're doing that, while you're giving the mic up, I'm going to throw a question in here because the whole of reggae music is country vibe, is Jamaica. And the British reggae scene is what we've been talking about here today. But I want to hear you address this issue. Where does British reggae music sit on the international stage within the context of the whole reggae music? Did you make any connection between
Yes.
reggae
Okay.
music in Britain and Jamaica?
All I'm gonna say to that is Tippa Irie has been to Jamaica, Sting, 86. He performed at Reggae Sunsplash, 87. And he's performed there several times. So that's the home of reggae. He's performed, like he said, in Australia. He's performed in America. He's performed in Europe. He's performed in China. He's performed in Russia. Okay? So if you're talking about British reggae, Ali Campbell and UB40, they've toured the whole of the world. Steel Pulse from Birmingham. Musical Youth from Birmingham. Pato Banton from Birmingham. Bitty McLean. Okay. So let's go to Aswell, London. Maxi Priest, London. Carol Thompson, London. Windsor, London. Janet Kay, London.
You want me to continue?
Go on. This is what we're about.
Anyway, moving on. My brother, can we have your question, please?
Yeah, Well, conscious reggae music, or reggae music generally, has always been a message music.
Yes.
Conscious message. And I'm just thinking in this day and age, where we are now in Britain, with all the flags going up and everything that we see around us, as a movement, as reggae music, or anything to say about the prevailing culture and what faces us as a people.
Well, for me, the music is, there's messages in the music, and me personally, my latest album is called I'm an African, yeah? So I basically talk about where I'm from, where my ancestors are from, where my parents are from, and where I'm from.
Big up.
Yeah?
Big
So,
up.
me as an individual, that's all that I can do. I try to influence my audience, my people. I try to encourage the youths then to write constructive lyrics, educational lyrics, things that are going to uplift the community. Unfortunately, a lot of the time, that's not the music what gets pushed to the forefront. Things like Hit and Run, and from Shensia and all these different artists, I like them, but I'm not going to encourage my daughter to hit and run. You understand? And this is what the problem is a lot of the time with the industry, and people gravitate to the foolishness. You know what I mean? And I ain't going to gravitate to that. I'm not going to follow that route or that. You could call me old. Maybe I'm old. You know what I mean? But it is what it is. And for me, I try to push. I like to make people laugh when they come to my show, make them smile, make them happy, but also like to try and put something in their brain. So for me, it's very difficult for the culture to move forward if everybody's not moving forward together, because it starts with the artist, because the artist creates the music, and then from the artist it goes to the DJ. The DJ then plays the music, and then from there it moves on to the public. You understand what I'm saying? So if it's in fact, it's not even it starts from the producer, because the producer produced the artist. So if the artist come with foolishness and the producer says, no, I don't want to hear that foolishness. You understand me? You have to chat some sensible lyrics. And people get into what they hear. And people are like sheep. If they're hearing, you might not like the Spice Girls, for instance, but if every day on Capitol you hear, I really, really want what I really, really want, next thing you know, you're walking down the road and you're going to hear yourself singing, I really, really want what I really, really want. You understand me? So so it starts from the producer, the artist, the DJs, and then John Public. Because if the producer tells the DJ, look, you're not coming in here with them lyrics there, I need you to write some positive lyrics, yeah? And then he writes that positive lyrics. Because remember, there's cultural songs that were very successful. You know what I'm saying? So people get into what they're fed. If they're fed with foolishness, they're going to buy into that and feel that that's the way to go forward. It can be cut off from the producer. I think that you understand what I'm saying, right?
Well, you've just talked about producer. Remember, a producer is an extension of the artist and the artist's creativity. So here's where I come in. If an artist comes in with a really good song, it's a catchy song, and I think that song will get attention, I'll record the song. What I have to do is record the song that it can be commercially successful, popular if you like. So I'll never stop an artist from doing that, no matter what artist it is. But I'm just going to give you a rundown of some songs that you might not have heard by popular artists. Who's heard of Sing Our Own Song by UB40? Yeah? Not many people, a few. The great flood of tears that we cried for our brothers and sisters who died over 400 years washed away. Now that's not a song that was in the charts at a high level. You didn't hear Marcus by Maxi Priest in the charts at a high level. You didn't hear Tippa Irie's I'm an African in the charts. You didn't hear Pato Banton's No Worry Your Mommy. You didn't hear Bitty McLean's, well, you did. Remember that? Here I stand all alone in this home. Yeah? Those are songs by British artists that have made it popular. And remember, you've got to still come from that angle where you encourage that artist to be great, to feel that they're going to do something. So it's dependent on the audience. What do the audience want? And this is where we've got to encourage our children and our children's children about what's in those books. Tippa Irie's book, Stick to My Roots, my book, because the information in there can be fed to them in a different way. When I was at university, I was reading Freud, I was reading Hertzberg, I was reading The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen R. Covey. I was reading a lot of books, and if you think about it, the books that you read have sometimes been turned into film, and you get the visionary, and then you probably might go back and read the book. A lot of us in here have read 50 Shades of Grey. Come on, let's admit it. Now, we also have to remember that we all want to be happy, and we've got that place in our heads and our hearts that wants love, wants attention, wants appreciation, and sometimes that's given to us in different ways. Because we're all different, but equal.
Yes, sir.
Take another question.
You can do so.
Did you want to ask a question? I'm just going to give 2 more questions and then
I will wrap up.
And then you can ask to wrap up.
Okay.
This question is for Tippa.
Yes, darling.
Did you have a musical background? Like, did you study music at school?
It just came kind of, you know what? That's a very good question. Because when I was at school, I played for the Paddington Youth Steel Band, you know. So I used to play in the music room. Obviously, used to mess about on the drums and stuff like that, but I never really took it seriously like that. But then what I did take seriously was steel pan. So when I was at school, I was playing that, and then obviously I went to the Dorchester. I played at the Dorchester with a brother called Zach Herbert, who taught us the steel pan. So yeah, I guess that was one of the main things, instrument that I learned to play. And obviously I played at the Little Carnival. So yeah.
Another thing he took seriously was, you know what it is, don't you? That hat again.
He likes the sound of his voice. I'm sure you've gathered that, right?
You don't hear him when he's on to me on a Saturday and Sunday. And he plays with this man who goes, Manchester United.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Anyway, we're here for music, right? We're here for
fun as well. Let's be funny.
We're here for music. But time is running. But yeah, I played steel pan and just in the music room, little drums, little keyboards. That was it really. But then obviously vocals was my thing. MC was my thing. I just listened to the man them from Jamaica and just studied them. And then just continued from there really. And then after a while, you kind of develop your own identity, your own style, and that's basically what I did, you know.
Critical analysis, we call that in the professional, university world. Critical analysis, where you take something what somebody's done and you make it into yours, but you've got to do Harvard referencing after you do that. Anybody heard that term yet? Harvard referencing? that was stuck in my brain.
Any more questions?
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question about sampling.
Yes.
A lot of youngsters today, when they to the internet,
Yeah.
they're sampling. Now, a question to you and your manager. Are you?
He's not my manager anymore.
Not anymore. I've moved on from that. I've grown up.
Okay. 45 years into your music.
Yeah.
So a youngster samples your music.
Yeah.
Are you about, okay, all the best to you, or do you want your piece of royalty?
No, you've got to, it's the music business. So if somebody, samples my work, then I think I deserve to be paid for my work.
Yeah.
So if somebody samples my stuff, then they have to get permission and they need to pay me for using my voice.
Another word to that, again, is referencing. Yeah, they've used Tippa's words and his lyrics. So reference it, I would say, okay, I've worked out that you've referenced Tippa in this, like I did with Pato when he did the Beastie Boy, when the Beastie Boys referenced his work, and I made sure that Pato got paid for that. This is what we need to remember, like Tippa saying, the music business. And people don't often like the business because it means that you attach a certain set of rules and regulations to what they do.
Yeah.
But hey, how's he going to get paid?
Yeah, it's very important to, you've got things like the music union, not a lot of artists probably use that no more. But when you're starting out, things like that help to teach you the business, because there's a lot of societies. You've got the PRS, you've got PPL, you've got MCPS, you've got Sound Exchange, you've got Music Report, you've got all these different organizations where you can collect money from. So me personally, as an individual, I speak to people that know everything about these societies. Yeah, because what artists have to understand is better to get 100% of something than 100% of nothing. So for me, I will pay somebody 15% to get my 85%. Yeah, because that person that's taking that 15%, he knows everything about the MCPS, he knows everything about PPL, and he knows everything about Music Report, Sound Exchange. So I make sure I have people that knows the industry like that to collect, and they pay me my 85%, but you have the 15%, Richard, because I know that I get residual,
Yeah.
income, from all of these societies, and I'd rather pay that person 15% to get that, to collect it, so that I got all of these different entities coming in.
And my final word today,
Really?
and I study you, is you can't do it all.
Very important.
Remember, if you want to be an organisation that is big, that works throughout the world, you can't do it all. So find a team that can assist you to do it. If you're popular, you'll be able to pay that team. If you're not, unfortunately, it's going to be a struggle, because nobody will work for nothing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tippa Irie and I will be at the back, and we're happy to sign books for you if you want one. We've got other merchandise there like t-shirts, caps and whatever. Feel free to have a chat with us.
I'd just like to, first of all, thank you all guys for coming to support us this evening.
There's quite a lot of you, isn't it?
It was free, Grantley.
See, Captain funny as well.
But yeah, thank you guys for coming down to support us this evening. We really appreciate it, you know what I mean? And I'll, hope you, gain some knowledge from what we had to offer this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. industry and the artistry.
Yeah, I'm gonna sing one song for you. Alright? This song is the title track of my latest album, and it's called I Am an African. Alright? I'm a black man, I'm an African, and my parents are Jamaican, and I grew up in London, so you know I know where I'm coming from. I'm a black man, I'm an African, and my parents are Jamaican, and I grew up in London, so you know I know where I'm coming from. I know where I'm coming from, I know where I'm going. It's a positive energy. I keep on showing respect myself, respect my roots, and respect my ancestor. Can't forget Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, and Robert Nesta. Teach us to unify and pray for one another. Teach us to unify and love one another. One heart, one aim, and one destiny. And that's how we want in our community. So I'm a black man, I'm an African, and my parents are Jamaican, and I grew up in London, so you know I know where I'm coming from the natural continent, the motherland with natural resources, minerals and diamonds, anything you plant, well you know it, Africa, it is a place where everybody want go, like Addis Ababa, in Ethiopia, Lagos, Nigeria, Nairobi, Kenya, Azerbaijan, in the Ivory Coast, well I love the place that I want, visit the most. My ancestors were captured, taken to Jamaica by the British and Spanish colonial masters. In 1962, they get them independence, and them fly come a Britain for some bone and pencil. I'm a black man, I'm an African, and my parents are Jamaican, and I grew up in London, so you know I know where I'm coming from London, place of the Cockney Land, place of the lovers rock rhyme, and the jungle is place for the Roman queen, they are Buckingham, fish and chips and egg and bacon, rainy, cloudy, enough taxation, house of common and enough politician, and a lot of institutional racism.
Yes!
Thank you!
He's always got a melody. He's always got a melody. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Grantley.
Audience,
Yeah,
thank you ever so much.
for not sending me all the questions and everything. Thank you. All right, thank you guys. If you'd like a book, if you haven't got one, please feel free to support. Thank you.
Yes.